Hello YouTube, back with another video here, and as you can see we're working on a hood to an automobile that I will be doing some repairs to. We have our hood here, and it's actually came primered. I did not apply this black primer that's on here, so it came prepped. And then we also have our bumper here that's also primered. It's just plastic, it's a black plastic, but what I'll do, I have some Bulldog adhesion promoter which I will apply to that for the sticking process here, so that we have good adhesion with our paint so that there's no peeling. But yeah, this is everything how it came in a box, and we'll be getting to work here. Now, before I actually start the paint process, and this is very important, when it comes to painting, 75% of your prep work, the quality of the outcome of your work is in your prep work. You always want to make sure that your environment, your tools, everything that you're using, you're doing, is set to high standards, because this will depict the outcome of your work here. So what I'm doing, I'm just cleaning out the garage of any debris, dust. I'm gonna blow everything out because it decreases our chances of having little dust spots, particles that can blow onto our part here when we're painting. And when painting, once you start, that's pretty much it. Just to save yourself of the hassle of having to redo something, you always want to make sure that your area is nicely prepared, because it's a headache to have to go back. So before you move on to your next step, you want to make sure that the actual step that you're in is nicely done and completed, to where it would save the hassle of having to do something over. So I'm just blowing out the garage here, dust areas, dust, any little area where I see where there's dust, there's particles that may fall onto the part here. We want to get rid of that. So most of your job that you do when painting, it's very important that your prep work is nicely prepared. And as you can see here, we have our hood hung. I'm kind of just examining, making sure that everything is stable. This is just a pre-positioning. I will adjust it a little more when I'm ready to paint, but kind of just looking at everything, all my areas, examining to see how I would actually want to hang my parts before I start. How will I do it? So you have to have a plan in mind when you're doing this, because you want to make sure everything is set right. Now in this scene here, what I'm doing, I'm just examining the minimite 4 to see if it needs any maintenance. And as you can see here, the filter pads that we have, due to the heat that is produced from this machine, they become real brittle. And not only that, but when it becomes brittle, it's easier for the material to break into little pieces. And because this is a suctioning device here, those pieces end up in the suction part of this tool, and that's what we don't want, because that can lead to damage. And what we have here is just our remote defiant system that I purchased from Home Depot. And also on the side, I'm just checking all of my extra tools, everything that I would need to get the job done here. My suction cups, my paint, the hose, and I kind of examine everything to look for little cracks. My paint guns, making sure that everything is there. All of the tools that I will need to get the job done here. And also along the garage, you can see I also applied a tarp along the walls where the tools are, where there was just lots of dust buildup. I did blow it, but there's no way you can avoid dust. But if you can reduce the chances of dust getting on your part, that's a great thing. And we have our parts hung. I'm kind of just walking around. You always want to make sure that you're working in the best environment for your job. Now I'm still doing some cleaning here, kind of just examining the machine here, because I want to make sure that it works to its utmost performance without any issues. And as you can see here also along the sides, the filter pads, it gets real hot to the point where it kind of melts along the side of the machine here. And I want to get rid of those spots. So I have a Brillo pad, and I'm kind of just wiping to get as much of it as I can out of the machine, because we don't want the machine blowing these particles in there, because this is actually the point where whatever goes in is what's going to come out. But I believe there's lots of filtration mechanism that's built on the inside to where it will prevent that from getting into your part. That would be a difficult thing for the particles to go through the line and to end up on the actual part, but that would also be a headache. And the Fuji minimite, I come to see that it's a real sophisticated machine, and it was built very great to where, it's a professional performing machine. And throughout the projects that I have been able to produce a lot of good work, but we also want to make sure that we maintain the performance of the machine here. Now, these are our new pads here, which I purchased from Amazon. And as you can see, they're real soft. They're not brittle. So I believe they will do a better job at, holding dust from getting in, any particles that would actually try to suction its way into the machine here, just for the performance of the machine's sake. Now, in this clip here, I'm just going through the hood, going through all of the surfaces of the parts that I'm going to be painting here. We have the bumper, we have the hood, and I'm kind of just walking around. You always want to make sure that you examine all of your parts, because that's very important, because the amount of time that you invest to make sure that your surrounding is good and clear, the part is actually prepped properly, this all depicts the outcome of your final product here. Now, I continuously and I constantly, in between every step that I do, I'm blowing it out, because that's just chances of removing more dust that could get into the part. And we always want to make sure that this part is just prepped, and we only want paint, and then we want that clear going on. And dust particles, little nicks and knacks, those only lead to issues to where it kind of extends the work that I'm doing on the part, because along with that comes a little bit of sanding and then buffing to get rid of those little knickknacks. And the more I can prep the part so that the surface is clean, the less work that I would have to do post project. So pretty much just blowing it out, and at the same time I'm examining, I'm watching, I'm walking around, making sure that I have clearance, because we want to work in a comfortable workspace to where there's no interference. Because when it comes to painting, once you start and you have a bit of interference with any issues, then that kind of delays everything, and it leads to other problems that you might not have been ready for. Now, here I have my soft Brillo pad. This is just something that I normally like to do, because upon shipping, there's just shipping damage to the part here, a bunch of scratches, I guess due to packaging. And as you can see here, there's just little surfaces that could be better. So I'm gonna grab the pad here, and I'll kind of just give it a light scuff, just to make sure that the surface is uniform. And there's a lot of little scratches here, as you can see, but we'll pretty much just pass this pad lightly over the surface. We don't want to dig too deep into it. This is a much more sensitive material than metal, so you don't want to apply too much pressure, because you can cause deep scratches. And as you can see, we have a, I guess, solution on the metal here. All that has to come off, because we don't want our paint going over that, because that can lead to probably peeling. You never know what it can cause. But one thing is that you don't want to get to the point of painting your material and then you run upon an issue, and then it's just no return from that point. So you want to make sure that it's properly prepped before you move on to the next step. And here we're just checking the connections. I'm making sure that everything is properly secured. And when I get ready to paint, I'm actually going to position these lines to where it's kind of separated from our hanger here, so that does not cause problems also. Now in this clip, as you can see, just scuffing and scuffing and more scuffing. I can't stress that enough, but you want to make sure that you cover each and every angle that you will be applying your paint to, because you can have one surface that's nice and smooth and another that's real rough and scratchy, and you would hate to paint your part and then you're looking at it and then comes to find that the paint looks good on this side but then not good on the other. So you want to make sure that everything is uniform. Just scuff the whole area here to where the paint and the clear will be presented, so that when you do look at your final work, everything looks good all across. There's no uneven areas. So we're just scuffing, making sure that we have a nice smooth surface, and so that we can have a good quality of the application of the paint here. And then we'll pretty much take it from there. And on this clip here, as you can see, these are the end products of our scuffing. It did pick up a little bit on the primer which came with the part, and we don't want to remove that primer. We actually need that because it protects the metal. But you can see that many scuff scratches are presented here. They may look a little rough, deep in texture, but upon the touching and just feeling of it, it's nice and smooth, and these scratches will not present itself on the final outcome. We don't want that. We just want enough scuffing that will actually help with the adhesion process of the paint here, so it'll help it stick better. But how it looked before compared to how it looks now, you can see that it's much more uniform, and I'm pretty much just blowing everything out. We always want to make sure that we take out anything that we might have caused to come into the paint. Now in this section here, as you can see, I'm in a different location. Kind of just move things over to the office so I can make a little bit more room for myself so that I'm comfortable while doing this. And we just have our paint material here. We have our clear, we have our paint, a couple little parts, accessories for the 3M PPS cups that I'm using here. I find this to be very convenient rather than using the cup. It makes work for less mess. And after I'm done with these cups here, I pretty much can just not recycle them, but toss them out because I have extras. Now these are just our little parts here for my setup, and you will see that I will put everything together here. And these are just the caps for the 3M PPS. When everything is all final and mixed, I'll pretty much just cap it off with that. And this is our clear coat here from Autobahn. And we have our activator, and this is a 4-to-1. And then when we move to our paint here, this is actually going to be a 2-to-1 mix with the slow reducer that I have here. And this is just some paint that I had laying around for the part that I'm painting, and if I do need that, good to have it around as extra. So we have our paint, we have our clear. Make sure that we have everything that we need, because we don't want to actually start our project here and then comes to find, something is not there, something is not set up. So we don't want that. So I kind of like to go through all my tools just to make sure everything is nice, working, and there that I need. Now I'm going to be working on the paint gun here, pretty much just taking it apart. After each project that I do, I make sure that I thoroughly clean my gun out. But before I start a project, I like to also give it another clean with some lacquer thinner that I have in the spray bottle here. And I have a brush, got the microfiber towel, making sure that all of the internal working parts are not maybe contaminated with paint or anything that would cause the performance of the gun to not perform as good as it should. So I kind of like to go through everything here. Give it a good wipe, give it a good clean, make sure that everything is nicely wiped off and just prepped so that there's no interference, and also no bits and pieces of particles that I guess could fly within the passage areas of the paint, but also the air, because it's a mixture of both. So we want to make sure that these parts are nicely clean here, because it does perform better. We don't want no problems here as we're doing our project. So I kind of like to take my time just to look at everything, just to piece by piece, one at a time, go through everything, make sure that everything works, that it screws in properly, does not give me any issues, because that paint and that clear coat, what I come to find, these are moving parts. If you don't thoroughly clean them, it actually becomes like a glue, and it causes these knobs to kind of stick, and then you could run into problems here. And the lacquer thinner, which I purchased from Home Depot, it actually makes of good work to thinning out and breaking up those little gummed up areas. So we'll clean it off, and then we'll put everything back together, and pretty much cleaning but examining the part just to make sure that everything is nicely prepped. Now in this section here, as you can see, we have our clear coat already put into the cup here, and I'm doing a 4-to-1 with the clear. As you can see, I'm all the way up to the 11, and that's just the clear. And here you can see with the activator, I pretty much just brought it up a step to the left to the next 11, and that's our paint ratio there as far as the clear goes. So we got a good mix. That's enough hardener for the amount of clear that we have there to produce a good hardening of the clear coat. We also always want to make sure that these numbers are precise and accurate to what the manufacturers tell us. Now this is the 3M PPS here, pretty much just attaching everything to how it should be. And this is our suctioning cup. We'll just cap that off, and then I'll cap off the little open area. Now we're moving on to the paint here, and we're going to do a 2-to-1 with the paint. This is by Wanda. So I'll pretty much just mix that with the paint to where it should be on the 2-to-1 paint ratio, and then I'll add the slow reducer where that should be also. I'm going with the slow because the area where I'm actually painting, it's a real hot area. I'd say with all the doors closed, can produce a lot of heat. So kind of want it to go slow so everything does not cure at a rate where it shouldn't, to not produce a good quality work. So we're going with the 2-to-1 here, and I'll go to that 8, and then I'll move up to the next one with the reducer that we have here by Grow Automotive. And as you can see, the paint can here, I purchased the pouring lip. That just makes work for less mess, what I come to find, because trying to pour that paint without that lip, it makes a great deal of a mess, and also helps me to save paint. But yeah, we always want to make sure that everything is mixed properly before we open the can. We'll shake it up, make sure everything is mixed, because there's some little metallics in there. Now on my other work table that I have in the garage here, you can see that we got our Bulldog adhesion promoter, and this is a wax and grease remover that I purchased from Amazon. And then we have our clear and our paint mixed up right here. We have our spray bottle, tack rags, guns, everything is a go here. We have our part nicely cleaned, and I'm also going to blow this out and clean it a little more with some degreaser. It's good to also wipe it with a microfiber towel with pure clean water. That kind of removes any contamination solutions that could be on a surface, which may prevent the paint from sticking as good as it should. So that's something to always remember. You want to degrease your part because you don't want any greasy spots on there. But also water makes of a good solution to actually break up certain solutions that could be on a part. Because we want this as clean as we can get it. And I'd say about 75% of a good quality work comes from your prep work. I mean, from cleaning your area, from making sure that you have space to comfortably walk around your environment so that there's no issues. But most of your work should be focused on your prep work, because as far as painting, you're pretty much just laying paint down. But if your environment, your tools, and everything that you have to get the job done are not nicely prepped, and the quality of your work more than likely is not going to come out as good as it can. So you always want to make sure that you focus on your prep. Everything is in the prep when it comes to painting. I mean, you could buy the most expensive paint, the most expensive clear, and think you could just apply it and think you're going to get a good job, but you're not. You want to make sure that your everything, that your preparation is pretty much to the T, because that's going to depict the outcome of your final work here. And as you can see, every time I do something, I'm constantly just blowing it out, making sure that it continues to stay clean. And even after that, you may get other dust particles that will fly on there. So I'll do another clean, and I'll continuously do this just to try to keep the part as clean as I can. Now in this section here, we got our gun connected. We have our paint on the gun here, and I'm just examining, making sure that everything is spraying properly as it should. And it's on to the painting here. Pretty much, I have my gun set to a full open air with a slight mist of the paint here. It may take a little longer to cover the areas, but I come to find it also gives much room for less mistakes, because I would hate to apply the paint and then it starts to build up over certain areas a little more than others. So I like to watch it as I'm applying the paint, and it's just a small mist. I'm going slowly here, just passing it through all the areas, making sure that everything is uniform, that I don't miss a spot. And also making sure that I have enough room to walk around, that I'm comfortable. I'm holding the other end of the hose gun so that does not bump into the parts either. And that's just one light coat. As you can see here through the hood, I have it hanging, and I'm kind of just passing a light mist coat. I can increase the amount of material if I wanted to, but I'm comfortable with kind of just doing light coats, and little by little over time you will see that it would build up. Now in this situation here, as you can see, it's a black hood, so this is going to require much more paint to cover the black areas, because the paint, it becomes translucent. It does not fully cover the black without multiple coats. But a sealer would help. Like if I had a gray sealer would actually make of less material that I would need to cover the areas here. But we'll pretty much just go along with it. It's a nice primer, and it's sticking good on the part, and I don't want to remove that. I don't want to apply any other layers of some sort. We're just going to go from the primer that's on here and directly to the paint. And as you can see, I'm kind of going around making sure that everything is uniform. We don't want one side of the hood having more paint than the other. We want to make sure that we cover all areas as what we started to where we will finish, so that everything is nicely even with paint, but you also want to do that with the clear. So I'm positioning myself, making sure that every bit of the square inches here are covered, nicely uniform, and then we'll just take it around. You want to check all your corners. You want to make sure that you don't miss a spot. Sometimes you have to stop, step back, kind of give yourself time to just check your part look, just to make sure, because when it comes to painting, you get to a point where it's at a point of no return. Like once you start, you want to make sure that you finish the job, because it would be real difficult to actually start, and God forbid if you had to stop due to an emergency, pretty much it kind of reverses your work here. So you end up kind of repeating some of the steps that you have already done. But give yourself time to make sure that everything is nicely prepped, that you're kind of holding your gun at an angle to where you would keep it at that same angle, and also your distance. That's very important because I give it about maybe 12-inch, depending on how the part is angled. I try to keep a space like that with a small miss, and I just pass it through, making sure that the application of the paint is going smoothly and uniform across all the areas. But I kind of gave that small mist a little bit of time to dry on the bumper, and then I'm just passing another coat here, another mist coat. It's actually a good application. I can actually see how it's being applied on the part, and then from there I'm kind of just judging it to see how much more paint I will need to make sure that the part is nicely covered and that it's even all across the areas here. But from left to right, moving around, and depending on how it looks, when it comes to painting, you have to be your own judge. You look at the part that already has paint and the part that doesn't, and you want to keep a mental memory to kind of compare the two to making sure that everything is even. Now what we have here is our paint, and it's flashing. As you can see, everything is nicely uniformed here. Our flakes are looking good. The part is clean. There's no dust on there. If I wanted to, I can pass a tack rag over it if I was to see something that I did not like that might have fell over the part. But nothing here. Everything's look nice, uniform, and it's clean. And we have a nice surface area of paint here that's actually ready for clear. But this is just one coat. I'll pass another just to be on a safe side, make sure everything is uniform, and I have to get the other side of the hood here. Now this is the second coat of paint, but judging from the first, everything is nice and uniform. But I like to examine, look at everything, make sure that it's nicely even. And as you can see here, we have our bottom part painted now. The paint is actually flashing and it's looking good. Everything is looking even. And you kind of just want to look at all your parts, make sure that you didn't miss anything or a small corner to where, you may see that there's some unevenness. But yeah, as you can see here, everything is looking good. It's looking nice. The surface is smooth. The paint is applied properly here to my likings, because everybody has their own ways and how they like to do things. And to me, as long as the outcome is good, you have a good quality of work, I'm fine with that. Yeah, but as you can see here, our paint is laid down. We're going to move on to some clear, and then we'll pretty much take it from there. Now, as you can see here, we're moving to some clear coat. And just like the paint, I'm not applying much, pretty much just, I'm actually spraying a heavier mist than the paint, because what I come to see with clear coat, you want to be careful. You don't want to over apply, but you don't want to under apply because of the flashing times in between. So you kind of want to spray an amount to where it kind of settles, but it has time to flash. But it's not drying, because if you over apply, you get runs. But if you under apply, you have to pay attention to your flash times, because that kind of changes things. But as you can see here, just examining the part, looking at all of the corners, the edges, making sure that the clear coat is actually flashing how it should. And if I decided to, based on how it's flashing in certain areas, because sometimes you get orange peel, sometimes some corners, some parts look just much more smoother and glossier than others. So I like to kind of walk around, look at it, make sure that it's even, and if I need another coat of clear, then I will apply that. As you can see, we have our clear coat on a hood, and it's flashing. Looks a little blotchy, but it's just flashing here. And I will apply another coat. We're moving on to the second one here. And as you can see, it's starting to look a little better. There's buildup. And what I come to find, by the hood hanging like that, it would have been a better process to actually lay it flat because we're working with a larger surface area. And along with that, we're using more clear because it's a big part, so that kind of increases your chances of runs. But judging on how you have your part positioned, like if this hood was flat on a table, I would not get as many runs as I did. But as you can see, there's 3 spots on that hood where I did get a run. But if I actually had it laying flat, I believe that would have prevented that. So that's another thing you want to pay attention to, is how you have your part positioned, depending on the amount of clear coat that you're using. Now, as you can see here, our hood is starting to flash a little more. It's nice, shiny. All of the corners are looking good, and we'll pretty much just give it time. And along with flashing, you can kind of see that the surface starts to improve. And this is actually after 24 hours here. We have our runs on the hood, but this hood most definitely is going to need a wet sand and buff. I will do that, but as far as the paint and the clear application, everything did lay down good, and this is it.